The film begins with a 26-year-old Eugénie Cléry attending the funeral of the French novelist Victor Hugo in Paris. Amidst the overwhelming crowd, we see her seemingly sobbing, or maybe having a bout of hiccups. Later, she returns home and lies to her father that she was with a friend. Eugénie lives with her strict father, a French aristocrat who often keeps her from doing things that interest her, a mother and a grandmother who do not care much about the father-daughter squabble, and her only stalwart support in the family, her brother Théophile Cléry. That night, Eugénie suffers what seems like a seizure or a panic attack and struggles to keep her composure. She splashes her face with water to calm her nerves when she suddenly sees her grandmother standing at the door, which scares her but also helps her calm down. Once she feels fine, she brushes her grandmother's hair and tucks her to bed. Her grandmother asks if she was with a friend or attended Victor Hugo's funeral. Eugénie, with a wide smile, admits the truth and excitedly tells her that an extraordinary amount of people had come. She soon leaves after wishing her grandmother good night, and as she's heading towards her room, she hears muffled voices and finds Théophile brushing his mustache on someone else's face. The next day, Théophile is leaving to participate in a debate, but is surprised to see Eugénie in his carriage. She insists on going to Montmartre, where no one will disturb her rendezvous with books on poetry and where her worries go up in smoke with every puff she takes, only her thoughts remaining. Christmas is just around the corner, and Théophile and Eugénie are busy decorating the Christmas tree when Eugénie has another episode. She reveals to Théophile that she sees different spirits. However, these past few days, a woman's spirit has been visiting her, asking for her help, but she doesn't know how to help her. One night, while brushing her grandmother's hair, Eugénie suddenly stops and frantically starts searching in her cupboard as if in a trance. She soon pulls out a pendant that was an engagement gift from her grandfather to her grandmother, who had lost it 40 years ago, which is likely also the last time the cupboard has been cleaned. Her grandmother is thrilled to have it back, as she calls it a miracle and asks Eugénie how she knew it was there. With tears in her eyes, Eugénie tells her that her grandpa told her. Her grandmother's smile fades away as she takes Eugénie in an embrace. The next morning, Eugénie is woken up by her mother, who asks her to get ready. Unbeknownst to her, her father and Théophile are taking her to Salpêtrière Mental Asylum for Women to get her committed. Her cries and pleas that she is not sick fall on deaf ears as she is dragged by asylum staff, her father remaining indifferent and Théophile puking his guts out. In the asylum, Eugénie is stripped naked, and after being examined by the head nurse, Geneviève Glaise, she informs Eugénie that her fate now lies with Dr. Jean-Martin Charcot, the head physician of the hospital. She is sent to the dormitory where she meets Louise and soon befriends her. Eugénie knows she is not meant to be in this place and knows what dark secrets this place holds. As famous as he is around the hospital and his colleagues, Dr. Charcot is known for all the wrong reasons among his patients. He is arrogant and treats his patients as lab rats. Today, it is Louise's turn, whom he displays as a case study for acute symptomatic hysteria to a room full of men. Using a tuning fork, he performs hypnosis on gullible Louise and makes her touch herself, only to satiate not just his perversion, but of every man present there. Charcot's session must have triggered a nerve activity, and Louise suddenly loses control and suffers from epilepsy, but the doctor doesn't care and leaves her suffering on the floor. Later that day, Geneviève takes care of Louise when Dr. Jules, another doctor at the asylum who was also present to see her hypnosis session, comes to visit her. He sends Geneviève and the other nurse out, and it is evident he has been using Louise to satisfy his carnal cravings by promising her marriage. At the Salpêtrière Mental Asylum, Geneviève can't seem to understand Eugénie and finds her intense. One day, Geneviève finds Eugénie standing by the window when she starts talking about Blondine, Geneviève's dead sister. Geneviève is taken aback but keeps her composure. She is genuinely surprised when Eugénie discloses facts that only she could have known, like the fact that she writes letters to Blondine, but Geneviève has had enough, and after asking her to shut up, she leaves the dormitory. That night when Geneviève returns home, still shocked about what happened, she opens a box that contains several letters addressed to Blondine. Geneviève adopts a softer approach towards Eugénie. However, she is helpless when the doctor claims Eugénie to be hysterical just because he doesn't have an answer to Eugénie's logical argument. Geneviève also cannot do anything when Eugénie is made to sit in a tub of icy cold water in the name of hydrotherapy to calm her down. That night while returning home, Geneviève finds herself being followed by someone. It turns out to be Théophile, who asks her to give Eugénie the book about spirits she was reading before they got her committed. He feels guilty for giving up on his sister and feels this is the least he can do for her. Geneviève ends up reading it the entire night, and in the morning, she has tears in her eyes. She quickly gets dressed and rushes to the asylum, but before commencing her duties for the day, she visits the chapel on the premises. It is laundry day and the women are busy washing the bed sheets. Geneviève is doing her rounds, but her eyes are only searching for Eugénie. She spots Eugénie and tells her about her meeting with Théophile and that he has sent a book for her. In return, Geneviève asks to speak with her sister, but Eugénie is adamant and asks Geneviève to help her regain her freedom. Geneviève doesn't promise anything, but says she'll see what she can do. In a very heartwarming moment on Christmas Eve, after the Mass is over, one of the residents of the asylum starts to sing at the church as they're all leaving, and for the first time, no one stops her. Geneviève asks the other nurses to let her finish, and we see the true nature of these women. They are not all insane, but only victims of the circumstances. The following day, Geneviève wakes Eugénie up early, and they go to a room to try contacting Blondine, and even though Eugénie is able to talk to her, she sends Geneviève home, saying something happened to her father. Geneviève rushes back, and as if God has sent her, she finds her father sitting beside the bed with a bleeding nose, unable to do anything. She tends to her father and, after tucking him in bed, walks outside to fresh snow falling, as if blessings from heaven. Later in the evening, when she brings her father supper, she confides in him about Blondine, but he quickly dismisses her and even suspects her of going insane before asking her to leave him alone. One day, Louise's right side of the body is paralyzed because of lateral hemiplegia during hypnosis sessions that Dr. Charcot conducted on her. Eugénie sees her friend in pain and blames the doctors and threatens to expose them for their inhumane practices as a result of greed and insatiable perversions. But she gets sedated with chloroform. She is put in isolation for a month so she can't influence the feeble women around her, and Dr. Charcot specifically appoints a cruel nurse, Jeanne, to keep an eye on Eugénie. But she does more than just keep an eye on her and deprives Eugénie of anything and everything, making her plight like that of a captured animal in a slaughterhouse. After spending many days thinking about it, Geneviève decides to help Eugénie escape. And after stealing the keys from Jeanne, she goes to meet Eugénie and finally reconciles with her sister Blondine through Eugénie. For the next step, she asks Dr. Charcot's permission to bring Eugénie back from isolation, as it has been over a month. She also writes a letter to Théophile asking him to be ready, as they will execute the plan on the day of the ball that Salpêtrière Hospital organizes every year. For doctors and nurses, it is a chance to observe patients supposedly diagnosed with various mental ailments. It is the day of the ball, and Théophile blends in with a group of doctors and finds Eugénie. They soon start dancing, and while everyone is distracted, they slip out with the help of Geneviève. However, Jeanne hasn't let them off her radar, and when she finds the three missing, she immediately rushes out. She sees the three escaping and starts calling for help, but no one comes as everybody is out of their senses, acting on their animalistic tendencies. Théophile and Eugénie have a carriage waiting outside the gates of the hospital, but Geneviève decides to stay back, and before parting ways, she tells Eugénie that by helping her, she has freed herself of the burden she had been carrying. Jean arrives with the help, but it is too late, and the brother-sister duo has already left. She claims Geneviève to have gone mad and takes her into custody. Meanwhile, the doctors get drunk and start taking advantage of the girls. Dr. Jules also lets his inner demon take over and takes a paralyzed Louise to an isolated chamber where he forces himself onto her. One other patient who saw Dr. Jules take Louise away returns to the dormitory and informs an older patient, Therese, of what Jules might be up to. Therese finds the chamber instinctively and thrashes Dr. Jules. It remains unknown what happened to Dr. Jules after that, or if he ever got to pull his pants back up. Geneviève has officially been committed to the same place she once worked and has become yet another victim of a sick society. She is, however, happy to know that at least Eugénie is free and thriving somewhere, as she mentions in the letters she often sends her, finally free of any societal restraints, not just in body, but spirit. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.